Windows 10 is gonna be out of support in a few months, and a lot of PCs are pretty much gonna be left in a state of uncertainty. After Microsoft pretty much said if you don't have the hardware they want, your PC is basically worthless to them. And unfortunately, you won't be able to upgrade to the latest spookware that's called Windows 11. So after a few months, your perfectly functional computer will cease to receive the security updates, which would leave you with two options. Either one, you fork some money to get some hardware that are supported by Windows 11 so you could get the privilege to upgrade, or two, you take the red pill and go to the Penguin. And this is the point of today's video, to hopefully convince you to become based and join the based and red pill OS community. So let's get into it. So, the first reason is Linux is free, and I don't mean it in the sense that it's free as in like the financial sense, as in Linux is free as in price. While that is definitely true, it's more of a literal sense. It's free as in freedom. And you may be wondering, what does freedom means in the context of an operating system? Basically, you can do whatever you want. You want to modify it, you can do that. You want to redistribute it, you can do that, etc, etc. You get the point. Basically, you have the freedom to do whatever you want with the OS without any consequences. With some exceptions, of course, but I don't want to get too technical. But overall, you can do whatever you want as long as you don't close the source code if you redistributed it. My bad. So, if you don't know what that means, this probably doesn't apply to you, so feel free to ignore this part and just enjoy modifying your system to your heart's content. Nobody's really gonna stop you, so yeah. The second reason I have for you that it's decentralized. So what does that even mean? So let me paint you this picture. Have you been annoyed when Microsoft, for example, does a change that's so nonsensical that it basically makes the OS unusable? Yeah, that's because Windows is centralized. It has one entity controlling it. Microsoft gets to say the final say for what it goes in their OS and what it doesn't. Yes, so if you don't like AI being forced into your throat, too bad, you're getting recall, whether you like it or not. But Linux, there's no real entity that's controlling it. You basically control the OS yourself. I mean, yeah, sure, there are a lot of distributions that are made by an entity, and they don't really have any real say for what goes into their system. For example, let's just say a distribution does something you don't really agree with, like a feature that you don't like, you can simply just remove that feature permanently and basically shape the distribution the way you like it. The distributions don't really call the shots. They merely give you suggestions, and you get to decide which feature stays and which gets removed. That's a good thing about Linux. Linux empowers you as the user, and there's no Microsoft that will annoy you with ads, and there's no guardrails that will prevent you from doing what you really want. The third reason, which goes nicely with the second reason, is that Linux is modular. Since Linux is decentralized in nature, that means Linux itself is not fully made by one entity either, or a single group of people. It's a collaboration by multiple group of people. For example, Linux itself is just a kernel, and that kernel is made by a Finnish developer called Linus Torvalds. And on top of that, is the call utilities that makes the system function. For most distribution, those are called the GNU core utils, which are made by the GNU projects. Then there is the init systems that's made by a different group of people. Then there's the desktop environments that are made by a different group of people, etc, etc. Basically, Linux is made by different components that are made by different groups of people, which makes it an entire operating system. So why is that a good thing? Let's just say hypothetically, some big corporation wants to buy out Linux, to extinguish it or to use it for their own gains. It doesn't matter. They'll quickly find out that they can't do that because, number one, Linux being modular in nature means they have to buy every single component of it, and that doesn't make sense financially as it will get very expensive. And two, hypothetically, let's just say they just want the kernel. So they just can't do that because the kernel itself is a result of 100 or if not thousands of people contributing to it. And for a company to just buy the kernel, they have to make sure every single one of the contributors to consent, which is impossible and not something that's practical for a corporation to do. which makes Linux itself impossible to buy. So, if you're worried about Linux getting too popular that a big corporation buys it out, that's never gonna happen, and it was made sure that Linux stays free forever. On the topic of modularity, let's talk about what that means for you, in a practical sense. Pretty much you have a lot of options to customize how your system looks and behaves. Don't like how your system looks? Not an issue. You have a lot of desktop environments in your disposal you can choose from. You think your system can boot a little bit faster? You can make it a little bit minimal. Change the init system to another one. Heck, you can even make it so minimal that it takes so little of your RAM. You get the point. A lot of options at your disposal. Fourth reason I have for you is privacy. Being free and open source in nature means it will naturally respect your privacy, as you can audit the code yourself. Windows isn't open source, so they can put spooky stuff in there that spies on you. Linux doesn't have that. Fifth reason is generally Linux is more lean than Windows and will run on literally anything, so your computer is probably already overkill. There isn't much to elaborate on that, so yeah, there you go. The sixth reason is that Linux is far more secure than Windows. Make no mistake though, you are not immune to viruses, so do practice some good habits and don't download sketchy stuff on the internet, but overall you're a little less to be infected by something on accident. In Linux, of course, as Linux is modular in nature and stuff generally don't affect you without admin privileges. So if they do, they don't generally go on a wider scale. I will make another video in detail to explain the security of Windows versus Linux, but for now just know that it's more secure. The seventh reason, which ties to the fifth reason, is that you will have more performance. Linux itself does a better job to your hardware than Linux does to your hardware, as you will gain significantly more performance in games and opening applications. Of course, that depends on your hardware, but still, generally speaking, you will gain more performance. Of course, I can keep going on, but I think at this point I will just stop here. I hope I have sold you on the red pill and try Linux today.